I'm going to just clarify again and kind of recap what I did with this. So, you know, I got this K2 style harness that I went with. The reason I went with the K2 was because it has the brake pedal on that year bike. I'm using, you know, these K3 and up Softails have a brake pedal, so I welded on the bracket to put a brake switch on. So this harness is set up for a pedal foot brake switch too, and in addition to the hand brake switch. I showed you the diagram of how to get your starter button to work with your battery, 12-volt battery, and the solenoid. You know, the battery itself is not running through the standard harness. I am just using a 12-volt battery to power this solenoid and start the engine through this electric starter engine motor down here. The other thing that I did that was of a change was this is the lead that comes out from the stator from this engine. I had to cut the bullet connectors off and put a nylon terminal here because I wanted it to be nice and plug and play with this harness that came from Trail Buddy. So this is a 5-wire full wave electrical system on this bike. Trail Buddy has 6 wires. The only real difference I would say is because it has a option for neutral switch, which this bike does not provide. So it's a 5-wire to a 6-wire lead on the Trail Buddy. Again, everything else is kind of plug and play and should just plug right in with the follow the descriptions on the wires. So this is going to be the Cdi box that hooks into the sub harness. I have the high tension coil that leads to your spark plug. That just plugs in where it says to plug in. The full wave rectifier plugs in where the typical rectifier plug is at. You got a couple grounding wires that are you're gonna ground your battery to your battery. And I'm just gonna add, I'll run this differently, but I'm gonna have an extra frame ground. And then the other part of that sub harness, it has another lead that runs so you can run everything through your stock harness. So this is part of the sub harness plugging into the factory style old 6-volt style wire harness. All you need to do, since now 12 volts can be running through here from the stator of the engine for the accessories, the lighting, is change your bulb out to a 12-volt style bulb in the front, 12-volt bulb in the back. You're gonna be good to go. And then I verified that my key switch that's wired in line with the factory style harness. So this last video is gonna be the final last video, of course. I'm gonna go ahead and get all the tank emblems on the tank, seat. We're gonna wrap up with a carb installation. Gotta make some frame tweaks here. We got the aftermarket pegs that I put on. I had to drop them down about 3/4 of an inch to drop it so it can clear this side covering. These engines are a little wider, different than the standard Honda engine blocks. I'm gonna work on getting the spring to work with my Honda factory foot brake, but I do have to go to the shop press and give it some bends to help it clear this lowered foot pedal and bring it upward so it's a nice comfortable position for your front of your foot to push it down. The other little thing I had to do with this larger engine was, this is a factory OEM fender. I had to come in and do a little Dremel sanding here on the fends. The front fender would come in real close and sometimes hit it, so I clearanced that out a little bit. Probably put some black high temp paint back on there. So that was jump back into the wiring harness part of this thing. So here's a K2 harness that I'm using. This is the wiring diagram on the bike, but you can see on a standard Honda engine you've got your ignition coil for your spark, and then you got your accessory coil for your lighting. So you got 3 feeds coming out of this coil, a blue, a gray, and a red. And then this represents the harness connector from your stator to your main harness at the frame. This is a connecting point. So you're gonna have the connector, and then you have your power 3 power feeds going to your key switch on the frame, and the only other power coming from that stator is the spark plug power. So with the Trail Buddy kit, I have to pull apart the sub harness to make it adapt to giving me 3 separate pins to power the key switch the way it needs to function. So I'll show you real quick what I'm going to do. This is the lead from that intermediate Trail Buddy sub harness. I already pulled my pins out, and what you end up getting from that harness to hook into your Honda based 6-volt harness is a power, a yellow for accessories. Your black and red is your ignition lead for your coil, high tension coil spark, and then it comes with he has wired in the neutral light and then a ground. So like I showed you earlier, there's 4 wires on this Honda K2 harness. 3 of them are for the accessory lighting and 1 is only for the ignition, spark ignition. So I need to pull these 2 out, which I don't use, the ground and the neutral light indicator, and then I'm going to triple splice this yellow light feed. I'm going to make a little 2 splices that are going to take up the empty 2 holes here on this connector to make sure I'm sending power for my lights to the 3 wires that need it on this harness. So that's the change you need to make. These aren't needed on this particular bike build. And then once those are in place, I'll hook it up, and then we will be able to get power to function on first switch will be ignition, engine running, and you're able to use your brake levers and foot pedal to put on your brake lights. And then when you turn it on to the 3rd switch, headlights now will come on like a nighttime ride. You'll get your dim glow out of your rear brake light, and then you will also have a bright light function. When you pull your brake, the brighter filament will light up. Same thing. Get you a visual here. So I took that 1 main yellow feed and split it 3 times. So we've got 3 yellow feeds and then 1 ignition feed. So let's test it out, make sure everything works good. No headlight yet. Got the tail light. I'm pulling the brakes, or handle. Let's do the foot pedal. That works. Now we'll turn on our headlight. Now we got headlight. Final steps here on this build with the 140 engine. I'm going to use this side cover as the mock-up cover so I don't scratch up the other blue cover. But my plan is, since that battery sticks out, I'm going to make some extensions to still adhere that cover on the bike. So I think the easiest way for me to do this is kind of use some pre-made hardware and modify it to work. So I went with some bolts. I'm going to size these down to the needed length for the extensions. I got some washers that actually hold a grommet inside of it that works really nice and snugly on the little nipples here. So I'm going to incorporate that onto the end of these, and then I'm going to turn these down to replicate the tapered nipples that are going to be able to slide into the frame's grommets. So the wife is happy with her new rug, so is Harper. So it's a good opportunity for me to do more bike building while she's in a good mood in the house. So back on the tank, this is my brass fitting. It's a 2-piece into a 1/4-inch nipple. So I'm going to use this as a low profile petcock, so to speak. Without, I'll have to put a on-off switch in between the run, but this will divert the flow to clear that carb area. So I'm pretty much done here on this bike. Happy with the way the results went. You know, I don't have an exact way of doing some of these builds, so this is me just trying, you know, parts and pieces and figuring out as we go. But you know, we got the petcock part diverter here from the tank. I ran it. It's got a filter on it because we're not using the traditional petcock that has a filter built in that sits in the tank. So I got a inline filter, and then I have a inline on-off petcock. Then I was able to come up with a pretty good idea with the battery cover here, the side cover. So I got my spacers I made that snap into their factory hold and then create another condition for the nipples to pop on. So there you go, these little spacers, and then that will go right up on there and clear the battery that's in there. So the side cover doesn't look out of place, it looks good, clears the battery. Now I'm going to get the decals on the tank, and that should be a wrap. I'll get a little video of me riding on the street. I don't have a setup to kind of vlog while riding yet. I'll have to figure that out as far as getting some video footage, but until then we'll just get some shots of me running up and down, ripping up and down the street here. This is the end of it here on this project. So got my decals on, and I'm just going to do a final run on it. But just to recap, this is a 74 Z50. It's got a GPX 140 in it with the electric start. Rewired it with K2 hardtail with the key switch setup, wire harness. Also did a sub harness kit from Trail Buddy out of Michigan. So it's got some welded on parts. I've welded on a couple brackets so you can get the foot brake light to work with the brake switch on the back. And then any other notable thing, gearing, it's just geared, it's geared for cruising. I think it cruises pretty comfortably without over revving around 40 miles an hour. So it's a good cruiser at about 40 miles an hour. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and just get it started and kind of give it a little rip. Alright, so that's a wrap. As always, subscribe. Got tons of other bikes I'm building, and you know, now you can see I do a lot of stock builds, but you know, I'm fully capable to do any custom work for you. So please subscribe, and more videos to come. Thanks, guys.